You mentioned Donald Trump and the UN speech. During that speech, Donald Trump said that he stopped 7 wars. He ended 7 wars, and he mentioned the Congo, which I believe that's still happening. Yeah. And it's laughable to me that so many people were falling for this, and nobody says no, you didn't. What are these 7 wars?
Well, gosh, let's go through them. First of all, the Congo. He's talking about a conflict that's taking place in eastern Congo that involves not just the Congolese forces in Rwanda, but in others as well. It's a very complicated situation involving ethnicities, natural resources, etc. The Congolese leadership said if Trump could come in and help facilitate an end to the conflict, they'd be willing to open up their rare earth mineral deposits for development by the United States. So Donald Trump sent I think it was a 3-person team in to begin the negotiations. They had to flee for their lives because they went in there. They had no clue what they were doing, and they irritated people, and next thing you know, they were marked for death and they had to run. That's how Donald Trump solved that conflict, which means he didn't solve it at all, but he's going to take credit for it. Armenia and Azerbaijan, the interesting thing is that this conflict was largely resolved primarily through the European Union intervention and Russia. I mean, Russia, of course, never gets the credit that Russia deserves, but the Russians played a significant role in bringing it into this conflict. But there was an outstanding issue, the Zangezur corridor, which is something that Turkey and Azerbaijan were insisting on, which required connecting the Azerbaijani exclave of Nakhchivan, I think I'm saying that correctly, which is separated from Azerbaijan, the main part, by Armenia and Iran on the bottom. But Nakhchivan borders Turkey. And so the idea is that Turkey would get connectivity through Nakhchivan, through the Zangezur corridor, to Azerbaijan, and then onwards into Central Asia. And this is part of the big Turkish concept of sort of reinvigorating their post-Ottoman dreams. But there were problems. One, Armenia wasn't too thrilled about giving up, a slice of its territory, especially after the very politically difficult reality of having to stand by while Azerbaijan ethnically cleansed the Nagorno-Karabakh territories, which had traditionally been populated by Armenians over the course of several centuries. But moreover, Iran had said it will not tolerate a Zangezur corridor that would, in effect, create a barrier between Iran and Armenia. So Trump sent in, I guess, Tom Barak, who is the U.S. ambassador to Turkey, but he's also somehow the special envoy to Lebanon and Syria, and now the special envoy for Armenia and Azerbaijan. And Barak apparently negotiated some deal where the United States will take control of 46 kilometers of highway and patrol it with not American troops, but American contractors, mercenaries, so to speak, and that this constitutes a peace deal. The problem is nobody's agreed to this. It's not going to happen. And so it's fake, like everything this man does. Thailand and Cambodia had a short war. Donald Trump made a couple of phone calls, but they haven't resolved anything. The conflict is being dealt with. It's about a lot more than simply having troops shoot each other. It's the position of temples, religious aspects, and then there's a history of personal relationships and animosity that comes from perceptions of betrayal that Donald Trump doesn't understand. I can guarantee you he doesn't know the names of the people involved or the complexities of the relationships. He just made a phone call, and because they stopped shooting each other, he went, I made peace. The same thing with India and Pakistan. He claims his phone call has resulted in amazing peace. It hasn't resulted in anything. He has not stopped a single conflict. That's the reality. Oh, the best one, of course, is Iran and Israel. Donald Trump is a peacemaker there. He bombed Iran, and he worked hand in glove with the Israelis to launch a surprise attack against Iran. And now he's trying to take credit as being a great peacemaker because Israel called him up and said, we have to have a ceasefire because we're getting pounded. There's no peacemaker about it. The one big chance he had to make a real difference in the world was Ukraine and Russia. Yeah. And he just punted. And all he's done there, I'm giving away the conclusion of my paper, but all he's done there is guarantee the death of the Ukrainian nation and probably the death of an additional 1.5 to 2 million Ukrainian soldiers, because this war now will not end until Russia physically destroys Ukraine. There is no longer an off-ramp. There is no peace deal to be had, which means Russia will fight until the very end, and Russia's winning, no matter what Zelensky whispers into Donald Trump's ear. Zelensky's words can't change reality.
That's right. And we tried to warn people about this, right? Like there were multiple opportunities there for peace, but I think it's definitely too late now. You mentioned Lebanon. I want to show people this. I don't know if everybody is aware of this. This happened recently. Did you guys know that Lebanon said that 4 U.S. citizens were killed, including 3 children in an Israeli drone strike, and nobody's talking about it? Like literally, like everything, all the news that you've heard in the past couple of days, Donald Trump's not talking about this. His administration is not talking about this. Like people are acting like this just didn't happen. Again, those are Americans that were killed. Now, imagine if this had been, this is the crazy part. Imagine if it was 4 Israelis that were killed. You see what I mean? It's like our government doesn't even want to have even more compassion for Americans who were killed than they do when you compare to Israelis that are killed. Like this is crazy that nobody is screaming this from the rooftops right now. And that leads me to this part here. And Orion Grimm shared this. The U.S. is arming the Lebanese military. So listen to what this is. Tom Barak. Listen to what he says here.
It's a good organization. It's well-meaning, but it's not well-equipped. Because who are they going to fight, right? We don't want to arm them. We're going to arm them so they can fight Israel? I don't think so. So you're arming them so they can fight their own people, the Hezbollah. Hezbollah is our enemy. Iran is our enemy. We need to cut the heads off of those snakes and chop the flow of funds. That's the only way you're going to stop Hezbollah.
So does Scott, like I'm screaming from the rooftops here. This guy just said that we are arming them not to fight Israel, but to basically fight their own people. And you have 4 Americans that were just killed in Lebanon because of Israeli strike, because of weapons that we give Israel.
Yep. Look, first of all, I'm not a big fan of Tom Barak, not at all. But he just said what is the truth. I mean, at least give him credit for being the only diplomat that's saying the truth. It may be unpleasant for us to hear, but this has been America's policy vis-a-vis Lebanon since the 1980s. Recall when the American Marines landed in Lebanon back in the 1980s to help get the PLO out of Beirut and then later on to facilitate a ceasefire. The big problem was that the United States treated the Lebanese army as just another militia, as opposed to an army capable of actually accomplishing a national unifying mission. And that got us in trouble because we were seen as just backing another militia. We don't want the Lebanese army to be able to confront Israel. Let's also look at this reality. Israel invaded and occupied southern Lebanon in 1982. It wasn't the Lebanese army that evicted Israel. It was Hezbollah. Hezbollah beat Israel. People don't seem to recall that, but it was Israel that retreated from southern Lebanon in 2000. Wasn't the Lebanese army that made them retreat. If you want a sovereign Lebanon, you need a Lebanese army capable of defending Lebanon. The reason why Hezbollah exists is because the Lebanese army can't defend Lebanon from an Israeli invader and occupier. That's the whole purpose of the Hezbollah resistance movement, and it's what gives it credibility. And Barak's statement doesn't do the Lebanese government any favors at all, because it simply proves Hezbollah's point that the United States wants Lebanon to be permanently subordinated to Israel and never be able to stand up and challenge Israel's violation of Lebanese sovereignty. The only military force in Lebanon capable of standing up to Israel is Hezbollah, and yet that's the force that the United States wants to see be disarmed. Not because we care about Lebanon, but we care about Israel. And we care about Israel more than we care about American citizens. Let this be a lesson to you. I mean, let's just, I hate playing the racial card. I really do. I despise myself when I do it. But I'm just going to be as honest as the day is long. You know why we're not mourning them? Because they're Arabs. They're not real Americans. They're Arabs. They call themselves Americans, but they're in Lebanon. They're down there in that Hezbollah country. And, therefore, they're not really Americans now, are they? And that's how our government treats them. But had they been pure Israeli Americans of the purest sort, my God, we'd be dropping nuclear. We wouldn't, but we'd be threatening everything to hold those accountable who dare, spill the blood of the pure Americans. But they're only pure because they're Israelis. These Arabs, they're not treated as Americans. And this goes across even non-Arab Americans. Rachel Corrie, that wonderful girl that got run over by an Israeli bulldozer, murdered. She's not real because she stood up against the Israelis, and therefore she's not a real American. She can't be a real American. There's Americans on this flotilla making their way to Gaza right now. It's apparently being attacked by Israeli drones as we speak. But no, we don't care about American lives. We only care about, select American lives. Look, we can just go on and on and on and on and on. I don't need to tell you about the inequities of how we value life here in America.
But even Ronald Reagan picked up the phone and told Israel, stop bombing Lebanon. You're losing support.
Well, let's see who. I think it was Barack again who said, he basically said, for Israel, there are no longer any red lines, blue lines, green lines, white lines. There are no lines. Israel will do whatever Israel wants to do, regardless. Why? Because Israel has now come face to face with the reality that the entire world views Israel as a pariah. And therefore, Israel's not out to impress anybody. Israel doesn't care about losing support. Netanyahu has recently come out and said that Israel must acknowledge that it has lost the world and that Israel must become self-sufficient totally, economically, and not rely on anybody. Well, that's a joke because when he says self-sufficient, what he means is that he has to keep the umbilical cord attached to the United States so he can continue to suck out the lifeblood of America. Israel's a parasite, literally a parasite attached to the American host. And we have to recognize it as such.
That's right. That part right there. Now, you mentioned those flotilla ships. So I don't know if everybody remembers, I covered this a while back, that there were 50 ships this time around that set sail to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. And so my biggest thing was like, okay, well, how are they going to stop like all 50 of those ships or whatever? But yeah, it is earlier news that was reported that Israel is implementing drone strikes on those flotilla ships. They also have, there's Americans on those ships as well. And again, that's another thing. You don't really hear corporate media talking about this much. I think the one time they did was when the first time Greta set sail on the Madeline. But since then, I don't really hear anything about it. And you would think 50 ships, obviously, is a big deal, but they're just pretending like this isn't happening. Like, I cannot stress this enough, you guys. Israel is drone attacking American citizens on international waters. Yep. And nobody's saying anything about it.
Well, you are. Thank you. And a few others are, but you're right. I think now we get into a different aspect of philosophy here. I got chewed out a while ago because I used the term alternative media when I described myself and you and others. And I was told if we allow ourselves to be defined as alternative media, we are literally subordinating ourselves to what we call the mainstream media. But the fact of the matter is the mainstream media is no longer mainstream. They we can call them corporate media, but they're not mainstream. And I think the term that you and I have to start embracing along with others is legitimate media, legitimate independent media. We're not alternative. We are legitimate and we are independent and we're reporting the facts. And the other thing I'd like to point out is I don't know what kind of audience you draw in, but I think it's respectable, and I think that your numbers at the end of the day, when you finally compile your views, are competitive to the corporate media numbers, especially certain shows. We actually do a lot better than we give ourselves credit. We are reaching a lot of people, and we are having an impact because our audience isn't a bunch of exhausted, American workers who have come home from work too tired to think, and they sit down in their overstuffed chair, automatically click on the legacy media that's pre-programmed into their TV to watch 30 minutes of drivel coming from some, over-coiffed, talking head. They don't think. They just absorb. The people that come to you, to me, and to others, these are thinking people. We may not always agree with what they think, but they're thinking people who have made a decision to find this program and watch this program, which means that this audience is far more active and does what we hope an active audience would do, which is to become politically active, to get out there and do things. So the hell with corporate media. I'm tired of giving them credence. I don't care about them anymore. What I care about is what we are doing, and we are doing the right thing. We are on the right side of history, and we are having a far greater impact on the public than mainstream media, corporate media does.
Well, thank you so much for that, Scott. Thank you so much for that, because I've been noticing, I think, their numbers aren't doing too well. One of the things I wanted to bring to your attention, I do want to get your take on this. France, and I believe also the UK, there's a couple of countries that have declared that they recognize the state of Palestine. Here's Macron. I just want to play a little bit of this here.
Le temps est venu. C'est pourquoi, fidèle à l'engagement historique de mon pays au Proche-Orient, pour la paix entre le peuple israélien et le peuple palestinien, je déclare que la France reconnaît aujourd'hui l'État de Palestine.
I don't have to play the whole thing, but you guys get the gist of this here. There are some countries that are allied with the U.S. that are saying that they recognize a Palestinian state. Scott, what is your take on this? I kind of feel like, okay, that's nice, but if you're still giving Israel weapons, well, what does this really mean? Do you think that this is really significant, or do you feel like it's theater in some way, shape, or form?
Tragically, it's pure theater. Mostly, I think Canada, Australia, France, Great Britain, and Spain, I believe, and there might be some others, Netherlands, maybe, perhaps, I'm not sure, have recognized a Palestinian state. And they defined the Palestinian state based upon the 1967 borders. Now, if you look at the situation today in Israel / occupied Palestine, demographically, the 1967 borders don't exist anymore. And one of the reasons is because of Israel's unconstrained, settlement policy. So my question to Macron is, having recognized the 1967 borders, what are you going to do to achieve this reality? You can't proclaim a state that literally doesn't exist. Are you going to advocate for the dismantlement of the settlements? What are you doing to put teeth into that policy? What are you doing to put pressure on the Israelis? And here's the other big question. When you speak of a Palestinian state, we now have to incorporate concepts that are contained in the Charter of the United Nations. Macron, that body you're speaking to when you're at the General Assembly. And these notions speak of self-determination. If there was an election in Palestine today, Hamas would win this election hands down. The Palestinian Authority under Mahmoud Abbas would not. They are widely despised by Palestinians as little more than an extension of the Israeli government, enforcers of Israeli occupation policies. And yet, all the people that recognized a Palestinian state today had a caveat that Hamas cannot be part of the government of Palestine, which means they're not recognizing a Palestinian state. They're recognizing this artificial entity they've constructed in their own head that is so far removed from reality as to be a joke. So this is the problem. Yes, I imagine that there'll be some Palestinians that feel good about this, but really, why? The fact is there won't be a Palestinian state, and there will never be a Palestinian state as long as the state of Israel exists in its current manifestation. Israel has said they will not tolerate this. And this is a widely embraced posture on the part of all Israelis. Yes, there are some who support this, but the fact of the matter is the Israeli government and the vast majority of Israelis will not support a Palestinian state, which means in order to be a Palestinian state, the primary impediment to having a Palestinian state must be eliminated. And that impediment is Israel. And so now who is going to eliminate Israel? And the fact is there's only two powers capable of eliminating Israel. One is Hamas, which is killing Israeli soldiers in prodigious amounts every day in Gaza, occupied Gaza. And two is Israel itself. And it's ultimately Israel that will kill Israel itself. Israel is isolating itself politically and destroying itself economically. The fact that Netanyahu has admitted that Israel must now be so-called self-sustaining means that he is a prisoner to America. And what we're seeing in America today is a shift in public opinion about Israel, about America's relationship with Israel, especially about Americans' continuous underwriting of Israel with American taxpayer dollars. All those West Bank settlers that we talked about earlier, do you know that they all have free health care? They all have free education. They don't work. They have free subsidies. You know who pays this 100%? The American taxpayer. So all you Americans out there that are struggling with, health bills and paying your school tax and trying to, live a quality life while ensuring that enough money is set aside for Uncle Sam, that money you're setting aside is going to a bunch of freeloaders from Brooklyn who went to Israel and stole land and now sit on that land and demand that you pay every aspect of their continued survival, including their pensions. All right. So they're doing no work, and yet you're going to pay for their pensions. I think it's time Americans begin to wake up, and they are waking up. And this is turning the table. And when you reach that critical point where Americans have turned their back on Israel, that umbilical cord will be cut. And that's when Israel dies. That's how Israel dies, because America will walk away. I don't know where you are on the Charlie Kirk thing, and I don't want to get too deep into that. If that's not your thing, it's not my thing. But I will say that, there is evidence that Charlie Kirk himself was starting to question aspects of America's relationship with Israel. And when you have a Christian fundamentalist conservative of that stature starting to question, that's extraordinarily problematic for Israel. This is why Netanyahu had to come out and start screaming at the top of his lungs, I didn't kill him, we didn't kill him. Not because there's any evidence he did, but he recognizes that the narrative, Israel's losing control of the narrative, and that it is having a fundamental impact on a critical aspect of the American demographic, these Christian Zionists, Christian fundamentalists who believe in Israel needing to exist in order to facilitate the rapture.
Yeah, and I want to come back to the Charlie Kirk part in just a second, because there is some good news. I think we got to look at what Italy is doing. This is something else that needs a lot of attention. The Italians decided to rise up against what Israel is doing. They had a general strike. This should be massive news all over the world, because I think there's something that we can learn from this. Just want to show you guys here.
Chanting, "We're all Palestinians" and "Stop genocide." Thousands of Italians gathered in central Rome in just one of the grassroots protests, blockades or strike actions taking place in 80 cities across Italy Monday, denouncing the war in Gaza. Transport services and a number of schools faced disruption amid the strikes, and striking dock workers blocked access roads to ports in Livorno and Genoa.
Why am I here? Because we must be here. Because we're human beings. And that's what matters. Beyond party politics, we must remain human. How can anyone remain indifferent to what's happening?
The Palestinian people continue to teach us yet another lesson in dignity and resilience. We learn from them and try to do our part.
Protesters say they're seeking to prevent Italy from being used as a staging post for the transfer of arms and other supplies to Israel. They're also calling for sanctions against Israel.
I think that civil society, students, workers, teachers, ordinary people right now are standing in for an institutional political system which even at the European level is timid, to say the least.
Transport Minister Matteo Salvini played down the impact of the protests that he said were organised by a far-left union group. Giorgia Meloni's right-wing Italian government is a traditional supporter of Israel, and although unease has grown over its relentless military campaign in Gaza, Rome has expressed reluctance about implementing the European Union's proposed trade sanctions. And while the majority of European countries now recognise a Palestinian state, the Italian government has said such a move could be counterproductive.
So the Italians have decided to rise up. And I think that's something we can look towards, right? So when people say, what can we do as just everyday citizens? I feel like the way that we hit back at Israel is basic economics. This is why they don't want us to boycott. This is why they're trying to pass legislation to basically punish or penalize businesses that want to boycott, divest, or sanction Israel, because ultimately that is what is going to make them crumble. So I feel like the Italians had the right message to say, we're going on a general strike. That's what we're going to do to fight back against Israel. And I 100% support a general strike. I think there's things that need to be discussed in terms of strategy, how that could be done here in the US. But the dock workers even shut down. And that's important because that moves the goods. So I feel like for those of us who are just everyday people here in the US, we're not in politics or anything like that. One of the things, the most powerful tools that we have is our buying power, right? So we can boycott. Look at the boycott that just was successful. The actors came forward and said they're going to boycott Disney. And so Disney changed their mind and Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air. Yep. What do you think about what the Italian workers decided to do?
I'm all on board. Look, I believe in the power of the people. I mean, it doesn't always manifest itself properly. And I have, sometimes I doubt the sustainability of these efforts, meaning I've too many times in the United States, I've seen the streets filled up for a day with protesters. And then the next day they're all gone. And if you're the government, that's not pressure at all. You just ride out that day. The sustainability of this. I think the Italians hopefully are different and this will be sustainable. I like the idea of the dock workers because that brings about immediate economic pain that has to be addressed. We've had American dock workers pull strikes in the past and you feel it almost immediately. So I'm for that. I'm also, look, I believe there's nothing wrong with an American voting their pocketbook. I mean, we do it every day, whether we agree to or not. I mean, I buy a certain brand of soda and I don't buy another brand of soda because I like the one brand, I don't like the other. But, yes, there's political, we know that there's a political price to be paid for calling for a boycott, divestment, and what's the sanctioning of BDS, isn't that it? BDS of look at me, social activist in the making. But when you announce it, you then can get the target put on you. What I'm here to say to everybody is, don't announce it. Just do it. Just do it. And enough of us just do it. They'll know. You see this right now. You have. I forget what it was. It was an Israeli chef, I think, who's gone out there, and he's being boycotted. And there's no, internet thing. People are just saying, you served in the IDF. We're not eating, and he's going out of business. And I would encourage every American to do your research. And if you find a business that is Israeli owned, Israeli affiliate, you don't have to put yourself at risk. Just don't buy from them. And if enough of us do this, their business will collapse. And eventually it becomes self-evident why it's happening. And we can impact Israel this way. We really can. And we're getting to the point right now where we're reaching critical mass, meaning where there's enough Americans that don't need to be asked to boycott. They're just doing it. They're just doing it because it's the right thing to do. And there we go. And
it's a safe.
The Achilles heel of Israel is their economy. You collapse their economy, you terminate Israel. That's the bottom line. And
it's a safe, non-violent thing that you can do. I think that's one of the things to look towards. I want to pivot to the Charlie Kirk part here as well. Scott, the big thing that we've been talking about on this show is that there has been a lack of transparency from the FBI, right? Like the stories that they have given us about what happened to Charlie Kirk, about Tyler Robinson, these stories don't add up at all. And so even for me, someone who has no weapons experience, I'm just sitting there thinking, so he disassembled this gun, put it back together, and then disassembled it again and put it in his book bag because he doesn't have the gun with him when he's getting off the roof of the building. And then apparently put the gun back together in the woods, still had time to change clothes 3 times. Like none of this stuff it just doesn't make any sense. What do you think happened to Charlie Kirk?
Well, I think he was murdered. And I think he was shot. Other than that, I just don't know. I mean, look, aren't you at all worried about the grammatically perfect confession? I mean, my wife is the furthest thing from a conspiracy theorist. She is as grounded can be. And she read that and she went, No, not only is it grammatically perfect, but just how ridiculous can it be? Hi, I've committed the perfect crime. Nobody will ever find out until I confess right here into every detail that I've done. Really? And where's the forensics on this? I mean, again, okay, so you have this text confession. Has anybody run the forensics on that? Done, just basic digital investigation 101? What's the point of origin? How did it go? What are the different IP addresses to link it up to prove that it originated at this point and finished at this point on this timeline? They say, where's the bullet? They've cleaned up the crime scene. They've literally ripped it up. Where's the bullet? To me, you put yellow tape around that thing and you go through with metal detectors and everything to find the damn bullet, because you need to match the bullet to the gun, or else you don't have a murder weapon. You have an exhibit. But until you can say this gun fired this bullet, who hit him here and it exited here and we found the bullet there. And, this is basic forensics 101. None of it's happening. And the body's already in the ground. Where's the autopsy? Where's the drawing that you always get? Here's the body. We have an entry wound here. We have an exit wound here. Where's this? Where is all this data? There is something fundamentally wrong about this whole thing. I'm not saying I know who killed it. I'm not saying I know where the assassin was. I'm not saying anything. What I'm saying is I don't know. But there are things that normally happen in an investigation that aren't happening or don't appear to be happening. Where's the damn bullet? And if you don't have the damn bullet, why did you clean up the crime scene? Because that's not allowed to happen. And it happened.
Well, why was someone allowed to move the camera and take the film out of the SD card out of the camera that was sitting right behind? Again, to your point, like that is a crime scene. Like you can't just remove like evidence from the crime scene. Why was Charlie Kirk put into a car and not an ambulance? Why wasn't there an ambulance?
Don't know. These are just all very good questions. Why did his security team take control of the body? Where were the police? To have an event like this, there have to be a certain number of paramedics on scene, depending on the size of the crowd. It's just natural. You have people roaming there. You have people there. For him, if he has a security detail, which he apparently had, there needs to be a paramedic aspect to that, a medical aspect. There needs to be, again, having done security details, what's your evacuation plan? Okay, Charlie, let's say there is trouble. How do we evacuate you, to where? If Charlie is injured, where is the ambulance? What is the evacuation plan? How do we get the ambulance out to the hospital? Which hospital are we going to? Have we done a survey of the hospitals? Is Charlie having a heart attack, taken to a cardiology center, a gunshot wound, boom, a stabbing? I mean, have we, these are the basic things that are done when you do a security detail of this nature. And yet what you end up having is people panicking over his body and then picking his body up and moving it to a private vehicle. I'm with you on this one. I just don't understand anything about this. And the more this investigation proceeds, the less confident I am that they're going to actually make it. This kid's got to go to trial. And that's where a good defense lawyer will be moving. Now, if this kid dies before trial, if this kid pleads guilty to preclude a trial, then we end up not getting any of these questions answered. But if this kid goes to trial, the government better have an airtight case.
And no lawyer. Where is Tyler Robinson's lawyer?
I don't know. There's another. What the hell's going on here?
This is wild, because for those who don't know, like if you don't have a lawyer, then you will be, the state will appoint one for you.
You have to have a lawyer right now because there are things happening right now that he must have legal counsel. So there must be a court appointed lawyer. You can't keep this man detained this long without legal counsel.
Yeah. It was kind of weird. I saw his first appearance where the judge was like asking him questions. And I said, why is he answering these questions without a lawyer?
Yeah. And the judge should not allow any questioning without a lawyer. Meaning as soon as he shows up, who's representing, who's your legal counsel? I don't have counsel. This proceeding is terminated. Why doesn't he have counsel? We can't proceed. And if he comes back here, at some point in time, the judge dismisses because it's like, we got a constitution. I'm with you on this one.
It's just very weird.
I stayed away from the whole Charlie Kirk thing just because, I'll just be honest. Other than enjoying trying to dissect his videos, because even though I disagreed about 90% of what he said, I got a kick out of the way he humiliated college students until I realized it was just all a setup, that it was just one big scam. And the reality is, in my life, the things that I do, the things I talk about, Charlie Kirk never factored into anything. Charlie Kirk didn't factor into any aspect of my reality. I'm sad he got shot. I don't believe anybody should be shot for what they say. I'm very sad for his wife and his two kids. I'm sad for his friend and his family. It's tragic. I'm not going to sit here and belittle his death. It's an absolute tragedy what happened. It has a chilling impact on free speech, both in terms of the notion that you get shot for saying something that people disagree with, and the fact that the people who claim to be Charlie Kirk's supporters are out there shutting down and deplatforming anybody who speaks ill of Charlie Kirk or somehow exercises their free speech in a way that they disagree with. But I don't one of the reasons why I don't pay too much attention to Charlie Kirk is I didn't pay any attention to him when he was alive. I mean, it's not like I woke up in the morning and go, well, I wonder what Charlie Kirk is up to today. I mean, I knew who he was, but when I talk about Russia and Ukraine, Charlie Kirk doesn't factor into this at all. When I talk about Israel and Gaza, he doesn't factor in. Charlie Kirk was a domestic political phenomenon with limited reach. People were very passionate about him, but he didn't move the needle in the real world, at least the real world that I occupy, at all, which is why I'm hands off on this, because this thing has gone, as you said, it's just gone crazy. It's gone down the rabbit hole, and if I jump in on it, it's, I just don't know where it's going.
Well, that article from the articles from the Gray Zone have been, I think, very revealing. Like I told my audience, you never know what's happening behind the scenes, right? So Candace Owens has come forward and said that he was going to mass. All these videos start to resurface of him questioning some of the things that Israel is doing, questioning if they stood down on October 7th. And for those who are not aware, Charlie Kirk was the one who basically got out the youth vote for the Republican Party. Like that was his role, going to those colleges and recruiting younger people, which did help Donald Trump. Like a lot of younger people did come out and vote for Donald Trump in 2024. But it's like, so if someone like him was to start to question Israel, that would be
a big deal.
Would be devastating.
A 100% big deal. And his audience is Christian conservative, Christian Zionists, people. I mean, there's an inherent contradiction between being MAGA, which Charlie Kirk apparently was, and being a Christian Zionist, Israel first. Because again, I've watched some. Charlie Kirk was talking apparently to a panel of his supporters, or his sub team of influencers, because you got Charlie Kirk at the top of the pyramid, and then you had these sub influencers out there, these people who were doing similar podcasts, related to Charlie Kirk, etc. And almost all of them went, "Oh no, big support of Israel, love Israel, Israel first, Israel good, but we don't like the taxpayer money going that direction. We need to invest in America today." So there's an inherent contradiction between we support Israel and we don't want any money going to Israel. And Charlie Kirk was starting to run into this contradiction and was convincing enough of these youth to say, no, we don't want the money going to Israel. We want the money coming here to America. Enough to apparently register in the pro-Zionist camp. And if what Max Blumenthal is reporting is true, it's dynamite. It's dynamite. The concept of this, was it Altman, this billionaire holding this thing in the Hamptons where Kirk came in and got yelled at?
Bill Ackman.
Yeah. I mean, it just underscores what we've all been led to believe is the absolute total control that Zionist money has on American legacy media and American politics. And if you deviate from the script, look, here we can talk, because I've lived through this. I mean, I've been courted by AIPAC. I was AIPAC's darling back in the day. They wanted me so bad it hurt. I was supposed to speak at the AIPAC convention and get the $6 million deal. I mean, people ask you how much you're worth. Well, AIPAC thought I was worth $6 million in 1998. That's what they put on the table for me to jump ship. And I told them to pound sand. And paid a little bit of a price ever since then. But so I know what it's like to have AIPAC put the squeeze on you. And I know how powerful AIPAC is. I was bird dog as I went around in Congress trying to stop the war in 2002. I had an AIPAC hit team coming in behind me. Every time I met with a senator and congressman, they slipped in and reminded them that how much money they took and what will happen if they listen to Scott Ritter. And so Washington, D.C. gets shut down. So, this is real. This isn't fake. This is as real as it gets. And I can sympathize with anybody who says that Charlie Kirk felt pressure, because if in fact he had the AIPAC Zionist hit teams put on him in terms of putting pressure, it's real pressure. It's real pressure. And they put pressure on I couldn't get a job because everybody I wrote a letter to, the first letter come back is, oh, you've got a great resume. We're really interested in you, man. We'd like to have you. And then they got the phone call and they came back and said, no. When I followed up on it, they were told they would lose U.S. grants or they would lose foundational funding. And you know where the foundational funding comes from? Pro-Israeli Zionist billionaires who stack the deck in every single foundation in America so that they don't let people come and work who are ideologically incompatible with the Zionist vision. So it's real. It exists, Sabby. And I can understand how Charlie Kirk, if he was subjected to this, would have felt real pressure. It's not, there's a lot of people out there poo-pooing it. Now, I'm here to tell you guys, it's as real as it gets.
Now, and if someone is converting from Protestant to Catholic, that also has an impact as well, right? Because Catholicism is different from the Protestant. This is the way I've because I grew up, Protestant, like non-denominational. At one point, I went to a Pentecostal church, and that was wild and crazy. But it's different from Catholicism because technically, under Catholicism, because you have a pope, like, do you have that allegiance to Israel that is pushed from pastors in the Protestant denomination?
No, the Catholic Church. I mean, you can have the Catholics who are sympathetic to Israel, but it's a different kind of sympathy. I mean, it's a sympathy born of, never again and German guilt. Remember, the German Catholic Church turned its back on the Jews during Nazi Germany time before Nazis went after the German Catholic Church as well, and the Lutherans and others. The Christian Zionists, though, are not Catholic. You can't be a Christian Zionist and be a Catholic because the Catholics don't embrace the Book of Revelations the way that Christian Zionists do. They're not as enthralled with the rapture as Christian Zionists are. They aren't seeking to promote Armageddon on a daily basis as the Christian Zionists are, because for a Christian Zionist like a Mike Huckabee or a Ted Cruz, Armageddon is the greatest thing in the world. You guys, when I talk about Armageddon, that means the end of the world. They are actively promoting thermonuclear war because this brings about the rapture. This is a good thing. I don't know about you, but when I elect somebody to represent me in Congress, the House or the Senate, I want them working to better my life, better the life of my children, to work on the good future. So when Ted Cruz says that I ran for the Senate to basically serve Israel because I believe in the rapture and first of all, it's as anti-American as it gets. But second of all, again, I'm not no theologian, but isn't God infallible? I mean, in theory, whether you're Catholic or Protestant, God's infallible. God's all-knowing. God's all-powerful. God's all-seeing. God's all-wise. God has a plan. It's God's master plan. And so who are these Christian evangelical Zionists to say we need to help God bring about the rapture? We need to come into Congress and be pro-Israel so we can bring about the rapture. Because what you're saying is God needs help. God needs your help to bring about the end of days. Without you supporting Israel, God wouldn't be able to bring about the rapture. You want to help God push towards the rapture. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of that argument as far as I'm concerned. Because you can't, on the one hand, say that you believe in God, an all-powerful God, all-knowing God, and on the other hand, say that God needs your help to achieve the end of the world. If God wants the end of the world, I would imagine God, who created the world, could bring about the end of the world, and he doesn't need Ted Cruz's help.
Exactly. And this is the part I think a lot of people fall for. It's just like, you really believe that like they have to do these things for this to happen? If God is as powerful as you say that he is, then you're right. He wouldn't need Ted Cruz's help. Like it's so like, I don't know. I feel like this is common sense, but I feel like a lot of people just don't have common sense.
No, they don't. on a multitude of issues. But again, we come back to what I talked about earlier. I mean, I ran into this a lot. I've told the story, but I'll just tell it real quick. And when I was trying to stop the Iraq war, I was out there all over the place, busting my butt trying to educate people about weapons of mass destruction, etc. And I have very close friends, believe it or not. And we would go out on Monday night to watch Monday Night Football. And we'd sit there and eat our wings and drink our beer and watch the football. And we'd have conversations. They're like, come on, Scott, why are you out there? I mean, Rush Limbaugh says you're wrong. And I convinced them that it was right. But, I asked them, why aren't you concerned about it? And they said, man, we don't have time. I mean, we work full time. We get up in the morning, go to a job, come home, and we just don't have time. This is your full-time job. The reason why you know this is that you did this for 7 years. You lived this life. I said, okay, fair enough. I'll give you a pass on that. Then the game comes on. They are all fantasy football guys. Okay. And they know every player, every stat, everything. And as the game gets down there and it's Monday night now, and you need that score, you need your player to perform, they are shrieking out data, stats. Why aren't you doing this? This is bad performance play. And I turn and I go, how do you know all this? Oh, we're fantasy football league. Yeah, but how do you learn? Oh, no, we subscribe. We get this thing. We log on to a website. We do. I said, so in your busy life, you have enough time to dedicate to learning fantasy football inside and out, but not enough time to dedicate to learning about a war that might cost thousands of Americans their lives. You just told me what your priorities are. And that's the problem, Sabby, is people's priorities. It's not just that the people are ignorant or they are willfully ignorant, meaning they choose to be ignorant about certain issues and certain topics. And that's a problem because people aren't inherently stupid. I believe that everybody actually has a functioning brain. People choose to be ignorant about subjects.
And I think that sums it up. I know a lot of people. I'm in a fantasy football league, but I also learn about war. I also learn about important topics as well. But you're right. Like some people would choose to spend more of their time on things that may not be as important instead of spending that time on the things that are really important. And I think that's what it really comes down to. A lot of it comes down to. Scott, thank you so much for your time. Anything you got coming up?
Yeah. On Saturday, we've got a big rally in Kingston, New York. Gerald Salante is putting it on in downtown Kingston. I've put out flyers on my social media, etc. From 2 to 6. If you're in Kingston, come. We've got a nice lineup of speakers. I get the honor and privilege of speaking, but so does Garland Nixon, Joe Loria, the editor of Consortium News, Ray McGovern, that former CIA analyst, Judge Napolitano is speaking. Dennis Kucinich is speaking. And Roger Waters will be making an appearance on video to address the crowd. We'll have live music. There's some food there. Good security, by the way, too. We actually had to double down on bringing in extra Kingston cops just because everybody's concerned about speaking in public. But come and join us. It's going to be a day where, we're going to be promoting not just ideas, but, projects. For instance, last year at this very same rally, I kicked off what I called Operation Dawn, which was an effort to help prevent nuclear war. And because of the great kickstart we got, we were able actually to help prevent a nuclear war by putting pressure on Congress and putting pressure on presidential candidates to do the right thing. This year, we'll be doing the same thing with trying to promote arms control, to extend the New START treaty, or at least extend the caps. Vladimir Putin yesterday spoke about this voluntary keeping the cap on, even though the treaty is dying. This is essential, ladies and gentlemen, because if this doesn't succeed, if this goes away, we instantly enter a nuclear arms race that will lead to what Ted Cruz apparently wants, a nuclear Armageddon. So this is a life and death issue, existential, and we're going to be kicking off a discussion of that. And this week, actually tomorrow, I begin a 3-day workshop with a bunch of people to strategize about how we can put pressure on the Trump administration to embrace in a meaningful fashion the issue of arms control so that there isn't a nuclear arms race. So there's that. I think people will be talking about Hamas and stuff at this, not Hamas, I'm sorry, about Palestine and the ongoing violence in Gaza. But this is that. And if you, as Sabby knows, none of this happens for free. And so if people want to support this, you can go to scottritter.com. You'll get to my Substack, and on there's a donation page. And I can promise you that any donations you send in will be used to the full extent to promote this arms control initiative. But I would also encourage everybody, Sabby, to wherever you generate your this stuff, what Sabby does doesn't happen only out of the kindness of her heart. Sabby has bills to pay. We all have bills to pay. We talk about independent journalists. We're independent because we don't have corporate sponsors. We're independent because we're not beholden to corporate money. But our lives go on, which means we have to pay the bills. And so for the people out there watching and commenting, keep Sabby in business. Keep her so she can do this. It's not a sin to have a roof over your head. It's not a sin to be able to have a family and to have a normal life. If you appreciate the work she's doing, and I do deeply appreciate the work she's doing, then support her and support her in whatever ways that she articulates. But Sabby needs your support. Everybody I mentioned at this speakers rally, those who are doing, like Garland Nixon, support Garland, support everybody. If there's people out there that you watch, that you listen, that you get your information from, support them. Because if you don't, we go away and the corporate media stays. And that's sort of a self-limiting thing that goes on there. So support me if you can, but support Sabby as well.
Thank you so much, Scott. And also, is this event going to be recorded or live streamed?
It will be live streamed. Gerald Salante has a YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. We're trying to get some others. Judge Napolitano's YouTube channel. The bottom line is we're going to do our damnedest to excuse my language. We're going to do our darndest to get the event streamed out to as many people as possible. If you go to scottritter.com, there will be it'll tell you how you can watch it. I think we're going to get the other people to publish this as well. But the idea, from 2 to 6, you should be able to watch this event streamed live.
Okay, cool. And I'm sorry I couldn't be there because I had a prior event as well. But I can imagine.
Invited, just so people know, Sabby was invited.
I was. I know. I feel like September is a very busy month as we're hitting into, we're now in fall. And I feel like there's going to be more events that are coming up. I know a number of people talked about having more speaking events in particular, especially around free speech with all the stuff that's going on right now. So, yeah, Julian Assange is free, but we still have this issue with free speech. So stay tuned for that, folks. Scott, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me again.
Hey, guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.